Let me read to you a passage from the 9th chapter of St. Luke's Gospel, verses 46 to 50. It's the Gospel for Monday of the 26th week in Ordinary Time. St. Luke writes, "An argument arose among the disciples about which of them was the greatest. Jesus realized the intention of their hearts, and took a child and placed it by his side, and said to them, 'Whoever receives this child in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives the one who sent me. For the one who is least among you is the one who is the greatest.' Then John said in reply, 'Master, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we tried to prevent him, because he does not follow in our company.' Jesus said to him, 'Do not prevent him, for whoever is not against you is for you.'" That's from Luke chapter 9, verses 46 to 50. And what does it suggest to us? Well, there are many things that drive the animal world, and one of them is the drive to dominate. Place two dogs in the same setting, and then consistently show favour to one of them. It is not at all unlikely that the other dog will attack the one being favoured so as to be the top dog itself. In one form or another, we see a similar pattern in numerous other families of animals, birds and insects. It is part of the drive to live, to survive and propagate, but it results in one attacking the other in order to dominate the scene. Now, how like the animal world is the human scene? If we consider the vast sweep of human history, and especially the conflicts that distinguish it, what is it that is at the root of the ebb and flow of human affairs? Among other things, it is the desire to dominate others and to be deemed the greatest. We see this in kingdoms, in communities, in organizations, and in families. It is one of the sources of so much suffering and evil, and it would appear to be an inexorable pattern of life. It constitutes much of the problem of evil. And when we ask why there is evil in the world, and why God is allowing it to go unchecked, in large measure we are asking why man desires to be the greatest and ruthlessly to dominate his fellow man. We are asking why he is so much of a beast. The answer to this has been revealed by God. This desire to be first appeared even in heaven, in the angelic rebellion against God. And this same desire to be the greatest and the first led to the fall of man and became part of man's crippled human nature, played out in human history with its wars, its conflicts and its murders. God's answer was to send his Son to show by his example and teaching a radically different way, and to offer us the grace to follow it. That way, God's way, is the way of humility and meekness. It is the way of the heart of Christ. "Come to me," our Lord said, "and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for your souls." The way of Christ is not to dominate, but to serve in all humility. Not to be the greatest, but to be the least, even to death on a cross. In our gospel passage today, we read, and I quote, that an argument arose among the disciples about which of them was the greatest. Jesus realized the intention of their hearts, and took a child and placed it by his side, and said to them, "Whoever receives this child in my name welcomes me, and whoever receives me receives the one who sent me. For the one who is least among you all is the one who is the greatest." At the beginning of his public ministry, our Lord was led by the Spirit of God into the desert to be tempted by the devil. At the end of his long fast, Satan took him, in some sense, to a high mountain and showed him the kingdoms of the world, and he claimed that they were all his to give to anyone who chose, suggesting that he himself had a hand in the rise and success of this or that empire and kingdom. He offered it all to Christ, if he would but fall down and adore him. Satan wanted to be the first and the greatest. So if much of the animal world manifests this desire to dominate and to be the greatest, if much of the history of mankind also shows this tendency, it distinguishes the demonic world. Christ revealed that God is the direct contrary to all of this. St. Paul writes that though he was in the form of God, possessing the glory of God, Christ shed all this and became as men are, and humbler still, even to embracing death on a cross. For this reason he was exalted. He told his disciples that the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for the many. At the Last Supper, he suddenly rose and took a bowl and went from disciple to disciple, humbly washing the feet of each. And then he told them that just as he, whom they rightly called their Master and their Lord, washed their feet, so they should wash the feet of each other. That was the way of God. The other is the way of Satan. The one who chooses to be the least, the one who chooses to be the least is the one who in God's sight is the greatest. If we aspire to be children of God, this must be the kind of life that we live. So let us strive to understand clearly that God is humble and serves humbly. We know this because Christ was humble and served humbly. He who sees me, he told his disciples at the Last Supper, sees the Father. The one who exalts himself, our Lord said, will be humbled, and the one who humbles himself will be exalted. Our Lord humbled himself and was exalted, and he invites us to follow his way. Let us, who aspire to be his disciples, resolve to follow in his footsteps every day.